I would say the biggest challenges were in the first season, when it was very new to me how to work that way. But like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. It's sort of a muscle that the more you exercise, the stronger you get. And there has been less and less CG as the show's progressed. We augmented our special effects budget to the extent that a lot of the stuff that had to be digitally rendered in the beginning, now we can have practically on set, whether it's in the design of the set or in Doug Jones's case, his costume and his prosthetic makeup. The biggest challenge I find isn't so much reacting to something that's not there. It's having 5 actors in the same frame all having to react to the same thing that's not there in the same way, and yet still having to be specific to their character's sense of fear or foreboding or whatever the appropriate response is.
How do you do that?
You have a little powwow beforehand, and you make sure that if I'm playing scared, everybody's going to play scared, right? You guys aren't going to cross your arms and look tough and have me looking scared, right? That's pretty much how you do it.
Can you tell us why in the science fiction TV show or movies the aliens are always ugly?
Actually, well, that's an interesting point, because when we had those aliens land at the end of last season, the one mandate that we had from Steven Spielberg in terms of their design was he wanted them to look kind, inherently kind. He wanted their eyes to be friendly and childlike, so that immediately there was something that compelled you to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I would agree with you that most of the time, with the exception of E.T. and maybe a couple others, aliens are supposed to look alien and terrifying and foreign and scary. But we're sort of playing with that a little bit with this new race of the Vulcan.
Can you describe the way you imagine the aliens?
Well, we really didn't have to imagine him because he's right there in the full suit. I always got a kick out of seeing Doug having to walk around on set, whether it was eating lunch, he's in this full alien makeup and whatnot, or at a table read. We were on a boat one time, he was feeling a little queasy, and I didn't want him to throw up, but I kind of wanted him to throw up because it would have been hilarious to see an alien throwing up.
Do you mind answering that first question about the challenges for you?
Yeah, the best way I describe it is, everything he said is right on. Having a ship fly over is always difficult too, getting everybody in sync together. All right, 1, 2, 3. But
don't they have like a ball or something for your guys?
That'd be nice. We're not going to track that far. And if you threw something, it would move too fast. It's slower than what you would think. Because if you just all did this, like it probably would be in real life, it just wouldn't work. But this show is one of the biggest things I've ever done. So I'm more used to being in the audition room than I am on set. So I walk into rooms, there are 4 white walls. I'm having to imagine everything. So even if there's just a C-stand with a ball on top, that's way more than I'm used to having. So I just love being on the set. It brings you so much. It's a whole other character to play.
I'm intrigued by the addition of Stephen Collins as the President of the United States before this whole thing started. So can you talk a bit about, for one, how much does he appear in this season, and what does that kind of bring to the show, having this former leader in this world with...
That's a perfect example. Yes, but Drew mentioned at the outset, maybe that was in the last group, but we try to have our Bible or mythology, it now extends over 5 years, and we're sort of halfway through it at the moment. So we kind of know the roadmap before we start. That's a perfect example of a variable that gets thrown into play, which makes us change courses in mid-stride. Initially in that script, the character of the president was really going to be a foil that Karen is promoting, and we dispatch him and kill and body that episode. And we got close to shooting. We were 2 or 3 days from principal photography. And collectively, we just suddenly put on the brakes and thought, wait a second. Do we want to kill the president? Is there any mileage to keeping the president alive? Is there any mileage in casting somebody who's really presidential that we could use in subsequent episodes? Let's not be rash here. And we completely diverted away from where we were going with it. We're fortunate enough to get somebody who really is presidential in Stephen Collins to come and play the part. And it opened up the storytelling in really wonderful ways, because up until that point we really feel like we're isolated and there's nothing else happening in the rest of the world. And then Tom Mason is sort of assuming this role of president, but to find out that there is actually a president above him takes all the pressure off the character to really have to be something that he's not, and allows him to go back to doing what he does best, which is to lead this group in battle.
That leads me to the next question. Mason took over for Terry O'Quinn's character because he felt like he was becoming like this evil kind of character. How is Mason's leadership different?
Well, I think he's very humble, and I think he's very self-effacing about it being more of a title than an occupation. I think he sees it as something that gives a placebo effect to the people. They need a sense of normalcy, they need a sense of calm, and having a figurehead as a leader and all the pageantry and rituals associated with that has that effect. Whether he intrinsically feels that he's powerful or effective or talented in the role, we haven't seen yet. But I think he understands the propaganda aspect of everybody's panicking, we have these new aliens with us, this is a very shaky time, chaos could break out any minute. What would be the galvanizing gesture to try and keep everybody on the same page? And it's to promote himself in his role and to try and keep as brave of a game face through it as he can.
Now that Tom has stepped up and become this leader, how does that change the family dynamic between everyone? Now that the new baby's coming and the boys are older.
I think the first couple seasons, the first season was really about Tom trying to keep his kids close and protect them. The second season was about them starting to push back and really want to exert some independence and some autonomy away from him. And in a weird way, this transference had happened where they were incredibly emotionally dependent on him in the first season. I think he became emotionally dependent on them in the second season. Third season is, you want it, you got it. I'm busy, you want to be on your own? Fine, but don't go crying to daddy when it doesn't work out. And eventually they find their way back to each other, but that's what the obstacle is at the outset. Is I'm busy, I've got a lot of responsibilities, you guys are men and talented and capable in your own right, so you want to see it.
Can you talk about the influence of...
Give George a chance to answer that question.
Yeah, I feel like that because he's so consumed in the presidency, that we start drifting. I have everything going on with the bug being in the brain, and really only Maggie to lean on. That's the only person I really trust to tell this to, because I feel like this is the kind of information, if it gets out, it's really going to be tough, especially when you look at yourself as the son of the president, who has also had an eye bug. So we Masons have had a couple of too many run-ins with these aliens that actually get in us. And then at the same time, there's little Matt, who he's for the first time able to do really whatever he wants. And just like the rest of the Masons, we have this rebellious streak in us. And he starts kind of pushing against those barriers and seeing how far he can go. He's skipping class, he's doing whatnot. And I think a nice lesson is learned in this season, like you were saying, that we all kind of venture out and find out that it's actually better to be a family as opposed to your own lonesome standing individual.
Could you talk about the influence of Steven Spielberg on the show?
It's pretty comprehensive, but not always directly felt. His involvement, I would call him more of a godfather than a father to this show. But you feel like you're in very safe hands knowing that he's watching. His input is on the script level, it's on the casting level, it's in creating the slate of directors, it's in the editorial, it's in the design and post-production. He does a lot of work with Zoic here in doing the design for the aliens and spaceships, the music, and his attention. He's all over it. It obviously comes and goes with whatever he's working on at the time. When he was in the middle of Lincoln, he was less involved. When he's not working, he's more involved. But this last season, getting minted as a producer, I got to be on the inside of the script notes that were coming out of DreamWorks directly from his office. So I could speak confidently about him paying attention, and his script analysis is the best I've ever seen. I mean, he knows exactly what this show needs to do to stay on track, and we always benefit greatly from his input.
It's a question for both of you. Imagine you're walking down the street and suddenly you see a spaceship landing in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
You panic, what do you do?
I look at myself and I go, I'm dressed way too nice. I only know how to do this when I look like a homeless man.
guys here?
Yeah,
One more
Dan.
question.
Real quick, with the addition of the new aliens, how does that change the balance of power? You've got the rebellious aliens, you have the ones who are trying to dominate you, and now you have a third set of aliens. How does that change the balance of power for the whole world, I guess?
Well, that's the big question. Are we going to throw off the yoke of one master and adopt the yoke of another? If once we dispatch these one aliens, are our allies going to turn into enemies? That's the big question that looms all season long. But as I said, you can't really argue with results. They bring a technology that's far superior to anything that we have, and for the first time we've not only just been able to defend our borders, but we've been able to expand them. We're actually starting to win, and it feels really good. And so while it may be a devil's bargain, and one that we have to pay close attention to, for right now it's working very well to our advantage.
Will there be interaction between the two of them to produce
A superhuman alien hybrid? Perhaps. If only to shoot the steam within mate.
Is it true that you're planning to play Steve Jobs again?
No,
it's not true.
it would be a dream to get another crack at that particular character. But as far as I know,
And how are you most like and different from your characters? Like, if you have to sum up 2 or 3 things.
same height.
You look taller.
I get that a lot. I'll let you take that one first.
I personally do a lot more thinking before I act upon something, whereas Hal just completely thinks with his heart, and his intuition is usually pretty spot on. I wish that you personally could rein in the women like Hal.
I would say the biggest similarity between Tom Mason and myself would be we're both driven ostensibly by our love for our kids. Most of our decision making stems back to that being the determining factor. And I would say we differ in that he's a lot smarter than I am.
Oh, don't let him fool you. He's got my ears. No dummy.